It's March 1st, 2017, just before dawn on Tanzania's Serengeti plain. As night turns into day, the animals begin to stir. The air is dry and quite cool. Jackets are necessary. Today, we explore Africa from a new vantage point, in a hot air balloon.
Here we go, up, up and away. My maiden voyage on a hot air balloon. A little nervous about this, but it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm sure the next thing you'll see is that balloon just puffing right up.
By the time we arrived at the launch site, the balloon and its basket were already unloaded and ready to be filled. Powerful fans are used to initially inflate the envelope. Passengers take their position while the basket lies on its side. Once the envelope begins to fill, huge propane burners are ignited to superheat the air already within the envelope. The pilot continues to heat the air, and in just a matter of minutes, we silently lift off. The only sounds we hear are our whispers, and then the occasional blast of the propane burners.
Back to the main road here. This road takes you all the way back to Ngorongoro, and that into North Serengeti.
You really have no steering capability, do you?
Well, it depends. Actually, a little bit. It depends. Every day is a little bit different. But with steering wheel, absolutely not. But at different altitude, we usually get different wind patterns. So that's what we're used to as balloon pilots, is finding those different wind patterns every day, seeing what kind of steering ability we're getting.
Floating on a current of light wind just above the herds of wild animals is an experience that is deeply embedded into my memory. And as I view the vast, pristine landscape of the Serengeti, I am troubled as to how fragile this environment really is. Because we're traveling with the wind, there are no extraneous wind noises with which we must contend. As we continue traversing this vast plain, our altitude varies from just a mere 100 feet upwards to nearly 1,000 feet.
This is way cool. Cooler than I anticipated. I highly recommend, if you have the opportunity to take a balloon ride, you should definitely do it. It's a great experience. Number one on the bucket list.
Just below us, we can see the two chase vehicles that have been following us throughout this trip. Their job, while it seems simple, is anything but. Their presence is twofold. First and foremost, they provide a level of safety and security, for you never know what may be waiting for us when we land. And secondly, they are our only way to get back to civilization.
Get comfortable, have seats. I'm just going to go up a little bit. I'm going to kind of rush along the grass to slow us down a bit.
Roughly 50 kilometers.
The pilot controlled the descent of the balloon by slowly allowing the hot air to escape from the envelope. And as graceful as our launch was, so was our landing.
All right, you guys, we made it.
Wow, they're all around us. Can you believe it?
So if you want to point it up, you can see them.
Once down, it was critical to deflate the balloon as quickly as possible. A flap at the top was released, allowing all the hot air to escape quickly. The ground crew then sprang into action, quickly taking down the massive hot air container.
Whoa, whoa. Oh. Great. A lot of fun. A lot of fun.
And in keeping with the long-standing tradition of hot air ballooning, all trips end with a champagne toast.
Okay, so it's good luck to catch the cork if it comes your way.
It's all you, buddy.
Now if you're in the central Serengeti.
Securely packed away in our vehicles, we head overland back to our base camp for our much-anticipated bush breakfast. But not without first picking up a flat tire along the way. Okay, as we start heading back towards our early morning breakfast, we're coming across the plains, and all of a sudden, we pick up a flat tire. Well, that's not just the good news. The really good news is that there's 3 cheetah over my shoulder that are keeping an eye on us. Let's just hope that they've already had their breakfast. With those 3 sets of peering eyes giving us the once-over, our driver succeeded in getting us back on track and moving again. Well, successful venture. Tires changed, everything's all fixed. The cheetahs stayed away. And now we're going to be heading back out and trying to get some breakfast. With breakfast about 10 miles away, the only way to get there was to take the scenic route. That meant off-road. What we didn't anticipate was that we would soon find ourselves dab smack in the middle of a massive herd of zebra and wildebeest. In retrospect, as we look back on this incredible adventure, off-roading in the middle of a herd of stampeding wildebeest certainly will be one of those memories that's going to stay with us forever. It's now been more than 4 hours since we awoke, packed up and headed out on our balloon adventure. It was finally time for a little grub. But first things first, nature was calling, and that call turned out to be a scream. While most of our hygiene facilities were either holes in the ground or just hanging on to the bumper of our truck out in the middle of nowhere, it was great to see a little bit of porcelain right here in the middle of the Serengeti. Now with business out of the way, it was time for a little bit of breakfast. After nearly 3 weeks trekking through East Africa, We needed a break in all that animal action. There's no better way to understand your surroundings than by meeting and talking with its residents. We did that in 2013 when visiting Africa for the first time, and we plan on doing it again this trip. Our plans take us to a Maasai village for a personal one-on-one tour, and then on to the small town of Mtuaembu, where we will learn all there is to know about growing and harvesting bananas. When I look back at 2013, we visited a local school, met the teachers and students, and were invited to their end-of-school year celebration.
Oh, man! Oh, yuck!
You guys are crazy! Okay? You guys are crazy!
Our guide then took us to his house, where we met his wife and family and shared some of their food. This experience was completely real, unscripted, and unpretentious. Unfortunately, while mildly interesting, this year's excursions may fall far short of expectation. The Maasai people, by nature, are cattlemen. For their entire lives, they raise, consume, and occasionally sell cows and goats. We will soon come to learn tourism is quickly taking over as their major source of revenue. When we got to the village, the chief's son, a Maasai warrior, and his welcoming committee adorned us in our very own shuka, a very colorful tribal garb worn by all the Maasai. As the villagers were performing a tribal dance, the Serengeti rains were rapidly approaching. We were quickly led into one of their mud and dung huts to escape the downpour. It was here the chief's son served up a little insight into the Maasai lifestyle. After the brief deluge, we emerged from the hut, eyes squinting from the daylight, as we made our way over to the small schoolhouse to meet the teacher and the kids.
Oh!
Kindergarten is the little kindergarten for the kids. The children are 3 years old to 7. And after 7, they will go into primary school, which is 15 kilometers from here. The children walking by foot and going to elementary school. Elementary school is a little bit very far from here. It's 15 kilometers from here.
While English is the national language in Tanzania and Kenya, Swahili is the language used to conduct business. At the school, both languages are taught, but the only English we heard came from the chief's son. No matter where in the world you vacation, the way out always passes through the gift shop. And just because we're in a Maasai village, deep in the middle of the Serengeti plain, why should this be any different? We got our first inkling that this village tour was turning into a quintessential Maasai shakedown when the chief's son told us that the shuka we were wearing could be ours for only $40 each. I wish I knew how to say "bite me" in Swahili, but then again, if I did, the dude might probably mistake my sarcasm and take a toothy chunk out of my ample body. After we successfully avoided the shuka ordeal, we were led to a circular array of tables that artfully displayed all the handmade trinkets that were available for sale. We made an incorrect assumption, however, that many of these small items could be had for $5 or $6. Man, were we ever wrong. Hell, for a minute I thought we were at Neiman Marcus. However, Fran was determined not to leave empty-handed. An ankle bracelet worn by the chief's son caught her eye, and so the bargaining began. By the time it was all over, the Maasai warrior had met his match. Starting out at $40, he knew he was not going to come out on top of this verbal duel. In the end, Fran said $20, take it or leave it, and stuck out her ankle. The game was over when the chief's son put the anklet on Fran's foot. Now that is the art of the deal.
Okay. You bought it now.
How much?
There are lots of tourists who will absolutely fawn over places like this, but Fran and I have lived the better part of our lives in touristy environments. I have no idea what this excursion cost us, but in retrospect, if I had it to do all over again, I would definitely skip the Maasai Village tour. In our zeal to delve deeper into local culture, we spent several hours in the small community of Mto-wa-Embu, which in Swahili means Mosquito River Village. Fortunate for us, the town's name bears no resemblance to reality, for there were no mosquitoes present. Well, at least that day. The town and its 15,000 residents generate most of its revenue from agriculture. However, similar in scope to the Maasai village we just visited, tourism is rapidly gaining steam. Street vendors are pervasive, selling everything imaginable, from locally grown fruits and veggies to freshly caught river fish to spare bicycle parts. Led by our very informative guide, we spent several hours learning everything you ever wanted to know about bananas, the ins and outs of handmade wooden works of art, and the general commerce that makes up this quaint community. Our first stop was a banana plantation. As we meandered our way through the fields, you really need to watch where you walk. One misstep can leave you wet and muddy, or even sideline you for the rest of your vacation.
To sell lot because the kids are in the holiday. Banana pollination starts.
Since it was Sunday, school was out, and so were the kids. With huge smiles on their faces, their only thoughts were how to have fun and how to ham it up for the camera. How are you?
Fine.
Yeah? What's your name?
My name is Jafari.
Yafari?
Yeah.
Yafari, my name is Andy.
Yeah.
How are you?
We are fine.
Is this your brother and sister?
Yeah.
Huh? If you ever wondered where all those intricately hand-carved wooden works of art come from, look no further. I thought that they were machine-generated in some kind of a Chinese slave factory. But much to my surprise, it's places like this that create these near-flawless sculptures. These craftsmen have been honing their skills ever since they were young kids. Their tools are rudimentary. No band saws, no planers, no routers here. In fact, there's not even any electricity. They start with a single piece of hardwood like ebony or mahogany, and then hand saw, chisel, and sand away for days until they achieve perfection. The workshop that we visited is actually a manufacturer for the many local souvenir shops that can be seen up and down the highway.
This is a pretty interesting little tour, although I saw a lot of banana plants, but very, very interesting. And I'm sweating to death, but that's good. That's a good thing. I only fell once in the mud, but these people are beautiful craftsmen. Very good. The word we're supposed to use around vendors is hapata asante. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, but I think that's correct.
And what does it mean, Fran?
No, thank you. That's a polite way of trying to get them off your tail, because they are very persistent. Hapata asante.
Benjamin's taken us to a local market area where we're walking down the streets and just checking out the different fruits, vegetables, and things that are available for sale. It's quite interesting. The Central Market in Mto-wa-Embu is what you'd expect of any third world East African open-air market. It's dark, dirty, and looks disorganized. And just walking through its narrow gravel aisles can be quite hazardous. But what'd you expect, Whole Foods?
Oh, yeah.
The only thing that I found extremely gross in this market was the butchery. For starters, the concept of hygiene is non-existent. Refrigeration is non-existent. And in all honesty, the area where all the meat is prepared looks more like a scene from a Stephen King horror movie.
Everything is taken. So when you buy meat here, normal regular meat, you have to get all the, to test all. You can be given a piece of steak, a piece of ribs, a piece of intestines until it fits 1 kilo. 1 kilo is like $5.
Okay.
If you just want steak with no bones and no nothing, yes, you have to pay like $15,000. That's like almost $7 or $8.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the steaks are expensive, but the normal ones?
But this told me one thing: avoid at all cost eating any meat from a local street vendor. This was a very interesting day, having had the opportunity to experience firsthand just a sampling of East African culture. Tomorrow, we're back on the animal trail to our final game drive, where we descend 2,000 feet into the Ngoro crater. Deep inside eastern equatorial Africa is a seismic area known as the Eastern Africa Rift. Scientists estimate that between 200 and 300 million years ago, a massive volcano in the area known today as Tanzania erupted with such force, resulting in the volcano's cone collapsing into itself, thereby forming a huge caldera. Today, the Ngoro crater is the largest intact caldera in the world, measuring 12 miles across and more than 102 square miles in area. Within this single crater lies one of the most diverse ecosystems on the planet. Virtually every environment, from an arid desert to a tropical rainforest, can be found here. With more than 25,000 large-bodied animals calling the crater its home, today, Fran and I will be descending almost a half a mile to the floor of the crater. Come with us now as we begin our final game drive in Eastern Africa. Well, today's Saturday. In fact, it's our last Saturday in country. We're in Tanzania and we're about to enter the Ngoro crater.
This is the only crater in the world that has its walls still intact, not broken at all, and the only crater that is known around the world with wildlife in it. No other craters that will hold any other wildlife. We are at 7,500 feet above sea level.
And the base that we see down there by the river?
It's about 5,500 feet. You drop about 2,000 feet to the crater floor.
The weather today is a rotten day. It's looks like all-day rain, one of those annoying drizzle kind of days. So I'm not sure what kind of pictures, what kind of video we're going to get, but at least it's going to be an adventure. Our driver, Limo, says that it's going to be, the weather's going to be different once we get down to the bottom of the crater. He said it might be sunny, might be clear, but it's definitely going to be different. Well, we'll wait and see. Here we are at the entrance point of the Ngoro crater in Tanzania.
Here's my friend. Just met him a few minutes ago. Maybe we'll see the real one down in the crater. Now I gotta pee. I hope there's a seat. Now that Fran's bladder is good to go, we began our downward trek into the caldera. It's going to be slow moving for a while thanks to the heavy rains we had last night and that oversized delivery truck we're having to follow. For about 20 minutes now, we've been stuck behind this one truck who refuses to pull over and give us a couple of inches so that we can get around him. We've been averaging about maybe 5 miles an hour. Hopefully we're gonna come across a little bit wider section of the road where maybe the truck will go ahead and let us yield, or he'll yield to us and let us go around. We can only hope. Finally, the truck turned off and the roads are starting to improve. As our driver begins to feel more confident with the weather and the road conditions, it seems like that confidence has transferred to his gas pedal. The only thoughts running through my mind right now are tomorrow's newspaper headlines. 2 Americans perish in another crater wreck. Hey, what's a little paranoia? Well, we finally reached the bottom of the Ngoro crater. It's quiet,
We have no wind out here. And as you can see, there's a very, very low cloud cover that is surrounding the area. In fact, it's so quiet down here, it's rather eerie. So far this morning, the radio chatter has been very encouraging. We just learned that a small group of black rhino have been spotted and are very close to our location. The Ngoro Conservancy is 100% responsible for the resurgence of the black rhino population. The use of 24/7 patrols has virtually eliminated poaching. From a low of just 2 black rhino in 1995, the crater now claims to have more than 20 black rhino and counting. A few minutes later, we spotted a rather large troop of baboon off in the distance. By my count, it looked like the troop totals about 40 and are headed off towards a wooded area about a mile away. Limo thinks he knows where they're headed, so we're going to try to head them off the pass. Meanwhile, Cape buffalo are grazing away without a care in the world. Once, as one of the most sought-after trophy animals, these magnificent creatures are now able to live the life that nature had intended. Just as Limo had thought, we found some of the baboon in a wooded area about a mile from when we first saw the troop. By the way this troop is interacting, I think it's fair to say that this sub-troop may even be a complete single family. Make no mistake, baboons are smart. Just watch this guy break into the car next to me, only to find a human in the back seat. The lesson here, lock your doors.
Is there a monkey? Yeah, it opened the car door. Did it really? It did. Did the man get it out? Scared the out of him. We go in? Yeah, went in.
While it's quite likely that we're not going to see any animals that we've not seen already on this trip, what makes this area completely different is the fact that it's pretty cool down here. I'm guessing that we're probably between 65, 68 degrees Fahrenheit with a humidity factor of near a 100%. So it's kind of like this cold, wet, damp feeling that we've got down here. So we're just going to keep on growing and see what we can find. It didn't take but a minute before we came across 2 old but very majestic bull elephants. While for a second we thought they may be having some words, it turned out they were just having a little bit of elephant fun. And the Maasai giraffe just can't get enough acacia leaves and thorns to satisfy their ravenous appetite. And without a care in the world, the zebra do what zebra do, eat and play, while the ostrich just doesn't care about anything. As we begin our trek across the crater to the dry zone, we come upon one of the few Maasai villages inhabiting the area. This is a Maasai village located inside the Ngoro crater. These people's jobs are to tend to the cattle that we see out on the mountainside. This is their job 24/7. It's amazing, but in the short span of less than 15 minutes, we left a cool and wet microclimate for one that is dry and relatively warm. While this area is much drier than our previous location, there was still no shortage of wild animals to see and experience. Before calling it a day here in the crater, we needed to check out 2 significant hippo pools located about 4 miles away back in the wet zone. We're at an area right now that's called the Hippo Pool, for good reasons. It's a big body of water that the hippos love to come and swim. But today there doesn't seem to be a whole bunch of activity going on. Finally, a hippo decided to come out of the water and say hello to us. Hola, hippo. While the first hippo pool was a bit of a dud, the second hippo pool looked to be much better once I can get past the throngs of gawkers. Here, we're going to be able to exit our vehicles and get a much closer look at the hippos, just not too close. What started out as a rain-soaked, white-knuckled, muddy drive into the crater turned out to be a rather mostly sunny, temperate, relaxing drive back to our lodge. Tomorrow we begin the long, arduous, nearly 3-day task of returning to the U.S. But tonight, we will spend our final evening in the Serengeti at the Plantation Lodge and celebrate this incredible adventure with great wine and food. In the morning, we head to the town of Arusha for a quick stop at the Arusha National Park and then on to the border crossing at Namanga, where we will be re-entering Kenya. With only 3 days left in our African adventure, we're headed to the Arusha National Park. It's doubtful we'll see or experience anything new, but we're willing to give it a try. So hang on, we are going into overdrive.
We're at our last game drive of the entire vacation. Hate to say this could be a lame game drive. We're at Arusha National Park. We won't see animals of prey, but we probably will see some giraffes, zebras, you know, just the normal kind of animals. So this is the last place we're going. We'll see how it is. We're supposed to do a little canoeing afterwards. I'm sure that's going to be a little lame, but you know, it could be spectacular. There could be a dinosaur in there while we're canoeing. We don't know, so maybe we need to check that out. And then we'll go back to our lodge, rest up, and get ready for the long journey home. Home to the United States of America that has clean bathrooms almost everywhere.
Fran's assumption was spot on. This game drive was lame. You know your safari adventure has run its course when you catch yourself saying, "Oh, it's just another giraffe coming over to say hello." Aside from the weather being awesome, the park really offered nothing new by way of animals or natural sights. But it's the little things that makes Fran Brown a happy girl.
You know you've been in a country too long when you get excited about a bathroom that has a seat and toilet paper. Oh, I'm so excited. This was a nice clean one. And I have clean hands.
We're definitely coming to the end of this trip. It's been just a shade under 3 weeks right now. We're in the town of Arusha. We've got a couple of more events planned for today. I'll tell you, man, if I had my druthers right now, I'd say screw it all. But I'm freaking exhausted. Time to buckle up and let's rock and roll. This is it, our last full night in Africa. To close out this incredible adventure, we're overnighting at the Amumero River Lodge, just outside the town of Arusha. When planning this trip, we specifically sought out a place that would allow us to wind down, decompress, and get our act together before starting out on our 20-plus hour return trip to the States. The grounds at Amumero are spectacular and even include their own free-range game reserve. Local animals like dik-dik and guinea hens roam the area in total freedom. From its inviting lobby, awesome swimming pool, and extremely well-stocked bar, our final night's needs were fully met. And as long as Fran has a comfortable bed, she's going to be a very, very happy person. And on that note, we bid you usiku emwema, or good night in Swahili.